Now, I've heard many times people saying Jesus received worship from the people, and only God receives worship, therefore Jesus must be God. One of the sources of this is Revelation 22, 8 through 9. And it says, "And I, John, saw these things and heard them, and when I heard and seen, I fell down to worship before the feet of the angel that showed me these things. Then saith he unto me, See thou do it not, for I am thy fellow servant, and of thy brethren the prophets, and of them which keep the sayings of this book, worship God." And then they point to all the verses where Jesus receives worship, and say that he must be God. Okay, well, I can see that kind of makes sense to me. But you need to look at the context, and also especially the original language. The word translated as worship in all of these passages is proskuneo. Proskuneo does not actually mean worship. It means obeisance, or bowing down to. In Revelation, Jesus says that he will make the synagogue of Satan worship. That's the way it's translated, proskuneo, same word, that's used in the Revelation 22, exact same word. To make the synagogue of Satan worship the people in the Church of Philadelphia. If we follow this argument to its logical conclusion, then we must say that the people represented by the Church of Philadelphia are gods. Revelation 3:9. "Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews, but are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and proskuneo, worship, before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee." So if saying this word means that this person must be God, then the people they're represented by this Church of Philadelphia must be gods. Obviously they're not. Therefore, we need to slow down on trying to say Jesus must be God, because he apparently receives worship in the translations. The Septuagint, the ancient Greek translation of the Old Testament, gives good insight into the Bible writer's understanding of proskuneo. It is useful because it is used by the Greek-speaking Jews and Christians in the first century. Naturally, the New Testament authors who were writing in ancient Greek often directly copy the Septuagint when quoting the Old Testament rather than making their own translation. If we look at how Greek words are used in the Septuagint, it will help us to see what the New Testament authors and the original readers understood these words to mean. Here are a couple passages where proskuneo is used in the Septuagint. And Genesis 19:1, this is the Greek, ancient Greek translation. This is English translation from the ancient Greek. "And then 2 angels came to Sodom at evening, and Lot sat by the gate of Sodom, and Lot, having seen them, rose up to meet them, and he worshipped proskuneon, which is a form of proskuneo, with his face to the ground, and said," and it continues on. And so in there, Lot, using the same word, does the same thing to angels also. Genesis 23:7. "And Abraham rose up and did obeisance, proskuneo, which is a form of proskuneo, to the people of the land, to the sons of Chet." In the first verse, we see Lot doing proskuneo to the angels with no objections. Same word. Lot does it to angels, and there's no objection this time. In the second verse, we see Abraham doing proskuneo to the people of the land. Again, there's no problem here. Abraham's doing it. This isn't just a quirk of ancient Greek. It is in the original Hebrew also. In the above passages, most everywhere we see worship or bowing down in the Old Testament, the Hebrew word is shachar, which is the same word in Exodus 25 that forbids bowing down to idols. So, the proskuneo Jesus received cannot prove divinity one way or the other. It's the intent of the person doing proskuneo that determines if it's an act of worship or respect. It's the same word in the original Greek. The only thing that makes a difference is their intent. So you can't use the word to prove intent. You have to use the context. So that word cannot prove divinity. The angel stopped John from doing proskuneo to him because of John's intent. It does not mean worship if you don't intend it to be for it to be an act of worship. The translators, just as Lot and Abraham, did not intend those to be an act of worship, but it's the exact same word in the Greek. The translators simply chose to translate it as worship whenever Jesus received it. To really understand what I'm trying to say, you look at the Trinitarian logic goes like this. On the left side, translators say, Jesus is God, therefore we translate proskuneo as worship whenever it's applied to Jesus, since God receives worship. Therefore the Bible translations show Jesus is accepting worship. Then the theologians say, well, the Bible translations show Jesus is accepting worship, and only God receives worship, therefore Jesus is God. It's kind of even drew it here in the circle. So you can see this really is circular logic. So it's not proof of anything. It's circular logic. So you be careful about the automatically assuming that Jesus is God, because he receives what's in the original Greek proskuneo.